Most men go through life believing they understand women, but that belief is nothing more than a comforting layer over an old ignorance. The true feminine nature is never spoken aloud because it reveals how blind, obedient, and predictable the modern man has become in the face of an emotional game he doesn't even realize he is playing. Everything he calls romance, affinity, or connection is actually the polished surface of psychological forces far older than his understanding of himself. What no one tells him is that a silent principle guides female behavior, a principle that shapes choices, attraction, and separation with the coldness of a natural law. It operates in the shadows, indifferent to what a man imagines about love or loyalty, observing only signs of strength, stability, and inner control. And while men argue about feelings, women are watching actions. The forbidden truth is that women never follow the story they tell. They follow the power they perceive. And most men, unable to see this, give everything away before understanding the cost. Most men look at women through lenses they built themselves, blending desire, neediness, and expectations into a comforting image that blocks them from seeing the truth. They look for sweetness, understanding, and emotional stability, and because of that, they overlook any signal that threatens this fantasy. This projection turns the woman into an idealized character, while reality remains intact, waiting for the right moment to expose his psychological fragility. A man who projects doesn't see intentions, he sees hopes. He interprets attention as affection, reacts to small gestures as if they were promises, and confuses momentary interest with a permanent bond. By doing this, he becomes emotionally blind, unable to notice shifts in behavior, fluctuations in desire, or subtle tests of power. His naivety traps him exactly in the position where he loses authority without realizing he's losing it. This emotional blindness doesn't come from a lack of intelligence, but from a lack of inner control. A man who cannot govern his impulses tends to romanticize what he wants, and that romanticization makes him vulnerable to any unexpected movement. He becomes the kind of man who insists on giving more than what was asked, speaking more than he should, and feeling faster than is safe. In that state, he believes he is being generous, when in truth he is revealing dependence. And it's that quiet dependence that destroys respect before the relationship even begins. The woman notices the insecurity born from his need to please and interprets it as emotional incapacity. She doesn't see kindness. She sees the absence of internal hierarchy. To her, a man who cannot command himself is already emotionally defeated, even if he believes he is winning her over. The masculine illusion is simple. He thinks he is loving when in reality he is surrendering. And a man who surrenders before understanding the game becomes predictable, manipulable, and easily discarded. Projection is the first mistake, and the most costly. The first truth men prefer to ignore is that women do not follow speeches, intentions, or promises. They follow power, and power for them is not physical dominance or aggression, but the quiet combination of calm, presence, and firmness. When a woman observes a man, she is not analyzing what he says. She's evaluating how he occupies space, how he manages his own silence, and how he responds to chaos. It's in that invisible terrain that real attraction is formed. Emotional hierarchy works like an instinct. An anxious man appears unstable, and an unstable man does not inspire safety. A centered man, who doesn't rush to explain himself, conveys dominance effortlessly. This is what creates the dividing line between the man who talks too much and the man who carries authority simply by existing. For a woman, an impeccable speech means far less than a solid posture. She does not follow a voice, she follows the energy behind it. The common man's mistake is believing he can persuade a woman through logic or narrative. He tries to justify himself, tries to impress, tries to rationalize emotions she evaluated long before his first sentence. While he builds arguments, she watches reactions. While he tries hard to be understood, she measures his ability to remain calm when confronted, challenged, or ignored. He believes he is being clear. She sees a man trying to earn permission to exist. The forbidden truth is that behavior speaks an ancestral language no sentence can replace. A woman recognizes a dominant posture before she even understands why. She perceives consistency, discipline, and self-control as signs of emotional superiority, and her response is immediate. She follows the man who demonstrates inner strength, not the one who performs it. In the end, a man is judged by what he keeps under control, not by what he tries to express. Words may seduce for a moment, but it is firm presence that decides who leads and who follows. Everything else is romantic illusion for men who have not yet awakened. Masculine kindness is often interpreted by men as a virtue, but in the psychological dynamics of women it rarely translates into respect. This happens because kindness, when not supported by boundaries and self-control, turns into emotional submission. And submission, even when disguised as gentleness, exposes the absence of inner strength. A woman watches the man who tries to please and senses a silent need for approval, something that to her sounds less like altruism and more like structural weakness. Coldness, on the other hand, is not cruelty. It is stability. It is the ability to keep one's center while the world around tries to break it. When a woman encounters a man who does not react impulsively, who does not crumble under minor tensions, and who does not offer his emotions as tribute, she interprets it as strategic maturity. This controlled coldness creates a field of respect no kindness could produce, because it reveals a man who does not rely on a woman's gaze to validate his existence. Male vulnerability, so romanticized in modern discourse, often pushes women away rather than drawing them closer. A woman may understand emotions, but what truly connects her is the sense that she is facing someone who remains whole, even under pressure. The man who exposes himself emotionally without discernment thinks he is being sincere, but to her he is simply proving that he lacks containment. And without containment, there is no emotional leadership. Machiavellian calm works as a silent weapon, not because it intimidates, but because it reveals autonomy. When a man maintains psychological distance, not out of arrogance but out of self-mastery, he creates a magnetism she feels before she analyzes it. She approaches not because of a promise of care, but because of the presence of invisible strength. In the end, the forbidden truth is straightforward. Women do not respect the man who dissolves into them. They respect the man who remains solid. Kindness may please, but coldness establishes hierarchy. And without hierarchy, there is no lasting attraction. Female tests are not conscious decisions. They are old reflexes rooted in instinct. They appear as small provocations, shifts in tone, calculated delays, and subtle questions that seem insignificant to an inattentive man. For her, the goal is not to humiliate or confuse, but to quickly identify who has emotional consistency and who only performs strength while everything is calm. These tests work as silent filters that remove weak men before she becomes too emotionally invested. What a woman evaluates in these moments is simple: stability. She watches to see if a man loses control, reacts with irritation or desperation, begs for validation, or maintains his structure intact. Every exaggerated emotional response exposes that he is trying to cling to the situation rather than lead it. And once she realizes she can control the man's psychological rhythm, the dynamic shifts permanently. He believes he is fighting for the relationship. She only confirms that his value was lower than it appeared. A man who fails these tests responds impulsively, trying to compensate for insecurity with grand words or urgent feelings. He tries to justify himself, tries to regain ground, tries to show intensity, as if that proved anything. But each attempt exposes his anxiety, and anxiety to a woman is a sign of instability. From that moment on, respect begins to erode, not because of a lack of affection, but because of a lack of emotional hierarchy. A man who is easily destabilized is not seen as a partner. He is seen as a risk. True strength appears in controlled silence, in the calculated pause, in the response that does not rush. The man who does not react to tests, who observes before acting, conveys a security that requires no explanation. He does not try to prove anything. He lets his behavior speak for him. And it is precisely this absence of desperation that a woman interprets as value. The forbidden truth is straightforward. Women test until they find the exact point where a man breaks. The one who doesn't break rises in the hierarchy. The one who does disappears from their interest. Limits are not barriers imposed on others. They are demonstrations of internal sovereignty. A man without limits becomes open territory, too accessible, too predictable, too easily shaped. And when a woman realizes she can cross his psychological boundaries without resistance, she does not interpret it as love or understanding. She sees it as a lack of emotional authority. A man who allows everything loses the ability to inspire respect because he shows that he does not even control himself. When a man sets clear limits, he creates a field of predictability that a woman recognizes as safety. It is not rigidity, but order. It is the sense that he has internal rules that do not change with mood, need, or desire. This constancy is rare and therefore valued. A woman does not feel protected by masculine intensity, but by the discipline he shows when he remains loyal to his own structure, even in the face of tests, tension, or provocation. The absence of limits turns a man into a disposable resource because he begins offering everything while demanding nothing. He gives up time, space, and energy before realizing he is dissolving himself in the hope of being accepted. In this state, any emotional scrap becomes enough for him to abandon his own dignity, and that silent surrender destroys attraction. A woman sees a man who can be easily manipulated, and what is easy never sustains respect. The sovereign man does not enforce limits with words but with presence. He does not threaten, beg, or explain. He simply steps away when something crosses what he considers acceptable. This withdrawal is not punishment, it is a declaration of value. A woman immediately recognizes that she is dealing with someone who would rather lose her company than lose his integrity, and that posture creates an aura of authority that no display of force could equal. In the end, the truth does not change. Women follow the man who does not negotiate with himself. The one who does not protect his limits loses his place. The one who does becomes the reference. Limits do not push people away. They filter, and only the filtered are respected. The idea that a woman stays out of commitment is a comfort only naive men still hold on to. Female loyalty is fluid, shaped by the feeling she experiences in the present, not by the history shared or the promises made. She isn't attached to the man himself, but to the emotional state he awakens in her. When that feeling shifts, the connection that held the bond dissolves as naturally as a tide pulling back without warning. To her, it isn't betrayal, it's instinct. Machiavelli already said that loyalty lasts only as long as interest lasts, and few human dynamics prove this more clearly than female emotional behavior. When a man triggers deep emotion, she follows him with devotion. When he triggers predictability, dependence, or emotional exhaustion, she withdraws with the same intensity she once approached, not out of malice, but because the emotional bond no longer justifies staying. Women don't remain out of pity, they remain out of intensity. The average man is shocked when he's replaced because he believes his effort should guarantee permanence. He mistakes dedication for value, patience for depth, and routine for stability. The problem is that none of these create emotion. He works to maintain the relationship while she watches whether he still generates the same energy that once moved her. When she senses he no longer does, she begins a silent withdrawal most men fail to notice. In that process, he thinks she changed. In reality, she simply returned to what she has always been, guided by emotion, not obligation. Replacement happens quickly because a woman is not looking for a new man. She's looking for a new emotional state. Whoever provides that state becomes relevant immediately, regardless of the history she had with someone else. The man who doesn't understand this tries to win her back with logic and memories, when he should understand that the territory was lost the moment his energy stopped having impact. The forbidden truth is relentless. You never possess the woman. You possess the feeling that keeps her with you. When that feeling dies, she leaves long before you realize you've already been left behind. The ordinary man believes that being desired is enough to secure a place in a woman's life. He interprets emotional intensity, constant messages, and physical attraction as signs of stability, as if the brief spark of female interest were proof that she would remain there, constant and predictable. But desire is unstable, shaped by mood, circumstances, and emotional tension. It appears quickly and disappears just as fast, and any man who relies on it builds his sense of worth on shifting ground. Dependency, however, is a completely different state. It doesn't come from charm, but from structure. A woman becomes dependent when she realizes that the man represents something she cannot recreate alone: emotional order, psychological direction, and internal stability. It's not touch that creates dependency. It's the feeling that his presence reorganizes her internal chaos. This kind of connection is rare, which is why it must never be confused with simple desire. The fatal mistake men make is believing that female intensity means security. They confuse enthusiasm with loyalty and attention with commitment. When she shows desire, they assume they've secured something permanent, and that's exactly when they begin to relax their posture, give too much, talk too much, and expose the fragility they were trying to hide. That's the moment desire dissolves, not because she changed, but because he became predictable. He turns attraction into routine, routine into neediness, and neediness into loss of value. Female emotional dependency arises when a man does not shift in response to her desire, when he remains the same, unmoved by his own impact, stable enough not to react. She interprets this emotional distance as necessity. He doesn't need her, but she realizes she needs him to maintain her own stability. That's the moment the direction of the game changes. The truth is simple and unforgiving. Being desired gets you through the door, but only being necessary keeps you on the throne. The man who fails to understand this difference loses power at the exact moment he believes he has secured it. The sovereign man doesn't compete, beg, or try to prove his worth. He moves with the calm of someone who understands that the world responds not to words but to presence. His strength lies not in intensity but in consistency. He offers no unnecessary explanations, seeks no validation, and doesn't react to minor provocations. This absence of urgency creates a psychological field where a woman immediately recognizes that she is facing someone who cannot be shaped. Such a man is rare, not because of the power he holds, but because of the discipline he maintains to avoid wasting it. His non-reactive posture dismantles any attempt at emotional manipulation. A woman who tests boundaries encounters a silent wall, not a man desperate to please. He listens without bending, observes without rushing, and responds only when necessary. This economy of movement creates the impression that every gesture carries weight, that every word is calculated, and this is precisely what makes him so compelling. He doesn't play the emotional game. He governs it through the sheer way he exists. Where others hesitate, he remains immovable. This type of man is rare because he requires a level of self-discipline few can sustain. He controls his impulses, regulates his emotional expression, and maintains a psychological distance that protects him from fragile attachments. He doesn't chase intensity at any cost. He seeks coherence. That coherence creates a presence that earns respect without effort. A woman senses she is dealing with someone who will not be guided by affection, but by internal principles that do not shift with emotion. It is this firm predictability that gives her a sense of security no speech can provide. The Machiavellian approach to dealing with women doesn't involve manipulation, but inner command. The sovereign man knows that every reaction is a strategic move, and that emotional weakness is the only irreversible defeat in this game. He becomes irresistible, not because he seeks desire, but because he embodies what cannot be replaced: stability, direction, and silent power. At this point, there is no more room for comfortable illusions. What has been revealed doesn't depend on beliefs, opinions, or male hopes. It depends solely on each man's ability to face his own reflection without looking away. The feminine dynamic has always been there, operating with precision while many insisted on confusing idealization with reality. Now, with this knowledge exposed, the only thing left is to accept that it is not the woman who determines your value. It is your internal structure that defines how she will perceive you. The inevitable question emerges like a silent blade. Do you act driven by power or by neediness? Most men answer with speeches, but their behavior exposes dependency, haste, fear of loss, and the urge to please. This combination is the exact formula for losing respect. Women do not leave men because of a lack of love. They leave because of a lack of emotional hierarchy. And this hierarchy exists only when a man masters what he feels before attempting to conquer anyone. The final mirror is unforgiving because it accepts no excuses. It shows how much you diluted yourself seeking approval, how often you confused attention with value, and how easily you surrendered emotional power expecting loyalty in return. The truth is that no man loses a woman suddenly. He loses himself gradually until she merely reacts to the emptiness he created. At that moment, it isn't her choosing to leave. It is you who ceased to be necessary. The responsibility always returns to the same point. A man who cannot sustain himself sustains no one. If you understand what has been said here, write in the comments, "I master the feminine nature," not as a promise, but as a conscious statement from someone who recognizes that the game begins within. And if you want to deepen this psychological mastery, watch the next video. A mind that sees the game never returns to acting like a piece.